There we go. We're live. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Bo Name's Bogus Hangout. And have everybody introduce themselves. Terry?
Terry Van Horn. I don't know. I don't work for anybody now. I just watch TV all day.
Steve?
Steve Gritzer, Steam Driven Media, and I can verify that Terry watches TV all day.
Doc?
And Doc Sheldon here from Intrinsic Value SEO and Search News Central.
And I'm Bill Slawski, author at SEO by the Sea and director of SEO research for Go Fish Digital. And I can also vouch for Terry's TV watching skill.
So where do we want to start today? You want to talk about the wonderful robots meta tag?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. That
Or the robots
text, yeah.
Yeah.
So how many people were using robots directives in their or no index values in the robots.txt?
Occasionally.
I have never seen a good reason to use one.
I've never felt any inclination to use it, but
No, I prefer the meta tag on the page, but yeah, I have early on when I didn't know any better, I used to do that, and found out that I was getting stuff in the index that wasn't supposed to be there. And I think it was a conversation in the dojo that cleared up that murky thinking for me.
Wow.
Well, that was always my issue was that, especially a few years back, invariably when somebody had an indexation problem, the first place you looked was their robots.txt,
Yep.
And they had it written improperly versus, being able to just control it on, one page at a time, like you should really.
Yeah, I had a new client here just a few weeks ago that they had disappeared. They couldn't understand everything was dropping out of the index. And they just had some intern in there doing some stuff, and I saw he had disallowed wildcard in the robots text.
Yeah.
So,
interns mucking around with your website is never a bad thing.
Yeah, it's not a good practice.
Yeah, there's some files that some people should be told no touchy and properties put on to do that. Robots text, I think, is one that should be in that category. And I don't know. I have looked over the years. I've looked at a lot of sites since WordPress come on the scene, and I've only seen one proper robots text for WordPress, i.e., what they recommend. I won't say who it is. But
all I ever used it for was ASCII art.
Somewhere
to put something. I only use robots.txt for ASCII art, just for somewhere to put something fun.
Yeah, on WordPress, it's kind of important. If you look, you should be blocking your everything in WP admin should be blocked. Google doesn't like it, but how you get around that is you allow CSS and JS to be indexed. That if you look at the recommendations on WordPress, there's a lot of stuff that they recommend you don't. And if you just look at it in, well, what does it matter? Well, people can do searches on Google and find ways to exploit your WordPress by knowing how to search those regions of the files. So, that should be strictly reviewed, I believe. Don't see too many people that do it right. And Google sends out messages that says, hey, we can't index you because you've got these blocked. No messaging, hey, just do this. You have to, I would say most SEOs wouldn't know how to fix that problem. Well, they don't, because when you look at their robot text, you see they don't.
Yeah, you don't want to block that JavaScript or the CSS, but the rest of it's fine.
Yeah. Oh, but there's a bunch of stuff that you wouldn't believe. WordPress says you should block it for security reasons. And stuff in like your content folder, some parts of it, theme folders. But most people don't think of it like that. I found it because I wondered what the recommendation was on WordPress and looked it up.
So your robots.txt file shouldn't be a guide on how to hack your site.
How to what?
Your robots.txt file shouldn't be a guide on how to hack your site.
That's true.
Yeah.
Well, the robot text doesn't, but by not blocking some portions and allowing Google, it doesn't. Those files won't show up in a search. But I think if you know how to search them, you can pull them out of the what do they call it? Supplemental index, i.e., stuff they don't want to show in the rankings, but stuff they've indexed.
Yeah.
Just because they can.
The ones that they told us 5 or so years ago they would stop indexing, or stop labeling as being from supplemental index, but would continue to index.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
Well, they did that because so many people like anything in the supplemental index probably wasn't going to rank, and that's why it was in the supplemental index.
Stuff in the supplemental index wasn't given PageRank.
Right. But also,
That's
however,
why
the supplemental index is used if they can't find anything or enough in the regular index.
Right.
They did to it. And that would happen when someone quotes and wants specific stuff, right? Like, for instance, a lot of times, different colors on, say, a drum has 16 different colors. Well, they'll only index one because all the other information is the same other than the color. But if someone were to quote that looking specifically for another color drum that you had, it would show up.
somebody quotes a string of text and they put quotation marks around it.
Yeah, and
It will return results that maybe have that text on that page, even if it's from a supplemental index.
right. And I think Google stopped labeling and telling people what was supplemental because
they didn't want to explain what the
wasted
supplemental index was anymore. Yeah.
too much wasted energy. Like, their answer was usually, well, there's lots of better things to do that don't do that. And often there is.
Which is understandable when you have the number of inquiries about things like that in the millions.
Well, I think it's also the client asks, what's a supplemental index? And then the guy says, well, that's stuff they don't really show in the rankings. The client goes nuts and wants them all in.
Why are you putting my stuff in the supplemental index?
Yeah, why is that happening? You got to fix that. Well, you know, yeah,
Make better stuff.
You can pull it if the right search was made, in quotes especially. And my big one that usually turned them off was, okay, then, well, each page would have to be unique. And as soon as, okay, we can maybe not need that. That sounds like a lot of work.
You do a site special operator on a site, and it only shows a few thousand pages instead of all the pages. And it's got that link at the end that says most of the remaining pages are very similar, and we're not going to show them all. If you want to see them, you can click here.
But even if you do that, it doesn't show them all.
No. But you know, when you have a few thousand pages and it's only showing 50, it's like, okay.
And the rest of them are similar.
Yeah.
No,
Well,
then you got a big problem.
Why do you think all my pages are similar? They're different. Well, mostly. So they got a lot of boilerplate that's exactly the same from one page to another.
The pages are identical except for the name and of the city.
See a lot of that.
Yeah. It's like people asking about a duplicate content penalty. And you explain to them, Google says no such thing exists. They'll penalize spam. But if you've got the same stuff on more than one page, they're probably only going to show one page of that.
Yeah, but I think even when they penalize spam,
yeah,
it's not like in the old days where it's, well, the only thing we can do is remove it all. Now they can take right down to the page level, I'm sure, where they can impose a penalty and just take out certain pages if they want. Didn't you have that happen, Doc?
I'm sorry, I was distracted because I was trying
Oh, geez. You're just here to hang out.
No, I just go back and forth trying to decide whether I'm going to pay somebody or fire them.
Oh, it's always.
You guys know, you know which way I'm leaning. Sorry about that. So, if it's worth your time, you want to repeat the question again? What did you think had happened to me before?
Where you had specific pages that were penalized when you linked to what's her name's blog.
Oh, no, actually that was that one guest post that Matt pointed out that was the all-inclusive sin, and they gave me a site-wide manual.
Oh, okay, it was for a single page. Okay.
It was for a single page, but it was a site-wide manual penalty because he didn't feel like me being a Mexico-located content agency should be linking out to somebody that talked about Spanish-speaking content generators.
Oh, yeah.
One of Matt's brain farts there. I don't know. But what it was just because of Ann Smarty, it was guilt by association. Anybody that had any association with my blog guest was getting hammered. It was fun, interesting.
Yeah, I knew there was one page involved, but I thought it was just on your side.
Yeah.
So it wasn't just a penalty against one page, it was a penalty against the whole site for one page.
For one page, yeah. And the funny thing was, had not been associated. At one time, she asked me if I would moderate over there, and I did. Yeah. But it had been about a year and a half prior to that I had left there, for the same reason that she got in a pissing contest with Google. That I wasn't comfortable with that stance. But I wasn't associated with it anymore, and the guy that did the guest post wasn't associated with them ever. But I was running. She had a couple of sponsorships she did on some content contests, and I would run a blog post on the contest, and there was a link going out to her amongst other sponsors for the contest. So that put me in bed with the devil, I guess.
Yeah, there seemed to
you know-
have been a lot of people that got hammered during that time for being on that website.
Yeah, and it was funny because first of all, I mean, it was literally, it took me about 45 minutes to resolve the whole damn thing, plus wait 4 hours for them to, or 4 days rather, for them to come back and lift the penalty, because I just went through the whole fucking site and no followed every single outgoing link, including those that went to Google, and that resolved that. But I was pleased with the way she handled it. She stuck by her guns,
Yeah.
I like that. I didn't necessarily agree with her position, but I had to respect the fact that she stuck by her guns.
Yeah, as I say, she didn't win the fight at all, but
Oh well, it didn't hurt her either. Really, I don't think.
no.
Organic is not where she was getting her leads anyway.
So what is the issue with guest posting? People were guest posting and linking to places that Google didn't like?
They didn't like the fact that it was a guest post was being put up just for the purposes of getting an outbound link to someplace. And the ones that I think they had the biggest problem with was in content links to some site that hopefully at least was marginally related to the topic at hand, not so much to the author's, in the author's bio to his site, although that happened too. But I remember when it happened, I went back and, remember when Matt was doing his weekly videos, I went through all those videos and I found he had made a mention. They had said blog guest posting was a good, viable way of getting some links back when.
Yep.
So this hasn't stemmed the tide of emails I received from
Nope.
numerous people wanting
Not even a little.
content to me.
Nope. But he had come out finally in a video and said that, this is, you guys are getting out of hand. This guest posting is kind of getting taken over the top. And then 6 months later, he did another video and basically said the same thing. You guys have really got to stop doing this. This is not a good practice. And then 6 months later again, he did it. So 3 times in a period, and then another 6 months before they dropped the hammer. So in a period of 18 months, they gave us 3 warnings, 6 months apart, before they actually pulled the trigger. And I went back and I mentioned this in a forum someplace, and somebody said, yeah. And then what about, I don't remember what the other thing was, the same type of thing where they had reversed their position, or not reversed it, they had actually come out against something. And then 3 times in 18 months before they pulled the trigger on that too. That seemed to be a kind of a pattern. So now if I hear them mention something the second time, I start watching the margins,
I think any technique that starts to get used by SEOs 6 months after somebody writes about it and everyone starts doing it, it's useless. It's useless.
Oh, yeah.
And that is not new. That is as long as I've been in this.
Yeah, that's been over a decade. That's been the case. Yeah.
I remember when we would talk about meta tags, right? When they actually meant something. And a few months after we started discussing it, that wouldn't work anymore.
Yeah.
Anybody who follows techniques that are,
I remember those discussions about the keywords. Yeah.
You have to think anytime you overuse it. For instance, if you do one survey post with the one with the huge ass graphics and everything, what are those called?
Infographics.
Yeah.
Those were good at first, and then at one point it became the flavor of the week. And guess what?
Yep.
Those are not a good thing.
So
They work just fine.
So both
You
Google,
just have to do them well.
both Google and Microsoft have patents saying that they'll read SEO forums to figure out who to penalize.
Yeah, and the same thing was true, Terry, on so many things. Directory submissions, press releases. You know, anything that starts getting talked about ends up getting abused in short order, and then ends up being hammered or disavowed entirely.
Look, anything you have control over the link, don't expect it to last.
Yeah.
Right, and that includes even if you are begging for links. I don't call it prospecting or outreach. It's begging for links.
Well, then that makes you wonder. I wonder if Google has just across the board devalued all outbound links from forums.
They probably are. There's probably forums where it matters, and there's probably posts where it matters.
Oh no, I said Forbes, the magazine.
Didn't Forbes no follow all their outbound links?
I don't know. I don't even bother to go over there anymore. I never checked.
Like something they would do.
I think that was in the news a couple months back. They no followed all of those.
Well, back when it was strictly a print mag, it used to have some value to me, but for the last 8 or 10 years, I wouldn't waste my time even going over there. Bunch of hacks that are allowed to write over there.
Every once in a while, there's a decent article, but
yeah, once in a while. But some editor will probably get his ass in a sling for letting that through. You can tell I'm in a good mood today.
It's looking less and less like that person's going to keep their job, huh?
Well, what can I say? When I taste blood, it always cheers me up. I love the smell of napalm in the morning.
There you go.
this is SEO in action. So Terry, you were telling us before the show started about the joys of retirement.
Yeah, I just watch TV all day. Watching a lot of movies and stuff.
Wearing out that Pornhub account, huh?
No, not quite. Can't get it on the TV. Monitor's not big enough. Yeah, I'm just, trying to decide what to do next. Kind of not sure. I'm tired. I've been doing this for 25 years. Probably that's twice as long as I did anything. So, want to get on to something else. I'll probably stay in web development or do some kind of web project, but not really interested in doing SEO. Probably do a bit of hosting on the side because doing that with my brother, working at it slowly.
You might as well find something that's fun.
Yep. And that now is a low-cost business to get into.
Yeah, not like in the early days, eh?
Oh, Jesus. If you figure how long I had servers and software and everything, you're talking probably, if I had have started with what I have right now, I would have saved, at least 50 grand, maybe more than that. Oh yeah, because I was paying almost $2,000 a month, no, $1,200 for the internet connection.
I remember those days when we used to count bits.
Yeah, I'm back to that. The biggest cost on Azure is storage. So, gotta watch how much you keep.
Well, you could always turn those machines into Bitcoin mining.
Libras.
There you go.
Libra
know what
coins.
Facebook Libra.
You could probably sit down and calculate how much you could make doing Bitcoin, because I've been on the system now for 6 years, so I have a lot of history, so I can look at the prices as far as what it costs and see how much it would cost me to produce Bitcoin. If there's
Generally, it's tough. The margin's really, really thin
right.
in most places.
So all you're doing is making Microsoft money.
If the
And
Libra
contributing to global warming.
if Libra ever actually managed to get off the ground at all, then the folks in on the early days might be able to make a killing. I just have real doubts that it'll ever be accepted at all. Coming from Facebook, I don't think they can give it away.
Well, and that's just it, though. The whole point of cryptocurrency was the decentralized nature of it. And here you've got,
Yeah,
Facebook.
exactly.
Yeah, I think until governments are in control of it, it's probably iffy all the way.
It looks like the Slack stock price isn't doing anything since they went public. They've been bouncing around about the $36 point. I didn't expect to see them go up or down because they're kind of one of those companies when you mention to anybody else who's investing, they generally go, who?
Right. What do they do?
Slack?
Slack. Oh, yeah, I can see why. That's a Twitter fiasco looking to happen. Nothing really proprietary there.
Yeah, except they're really good at it right now compared to everybody else.
Yeah. But why is it really good? Unless it's the talent that owns it, that is the reason it's really good. Yeah.
I know some people who love Slack, and I know some people who really hate Slack.
I hate it.
Yeah.
Now all the talk on Dojo has gone to it, and I don't participate much.
Mhm.
I miss ICQ.
There you go.
Wow. You still
Or IRC.
the Webmaster channel? Or Webmaster Radio? Is that still running?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Yep. That became less and less fun as fewer and fewer people were in the IRC channel during the shows.
Right.
That made the shows fun because you could heckle the people on the show in chat while they were doing the show.
Yeah. Yep.
Didn't know that was going on behind the scenes there. That's interesting.
Yeah, that was oh man, back then there was a lot of really great people on IRC back there.
Well, because there
Ray
wasn't,
Hoffman was back there.
there wasn't much else.
Well, it's just that they all most of the quote, big name folks weren't on the forums because the forums are a tedious pain in the ass. But they would be in the Webmaster Radio IRC channels.
Right. Yeah, I found that kind of the same thing in the back room in a forum. That was how I kind of saw I Help You, and I'm sure that's what it was like on Creative Side, Bill?
Yeah.
The best conversation happened in the back room, not in the forum.
It was worth being a member of the administration of the forum to have
Right.
access to that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there's also, you can talk about things back there that you couldn't talk about in public.
Yeah. And sometimes that was the best place to talk about those things.
If you could. That's the problem is in our industry is sometimes you just can't talk about it because you have your hands tied.
Hmm.
And also sometimes it just isn't in your best interest to tell people things that
Yeah.
I remember when we invited the founders of Sempo, the first president, and some other people to talk with us. And that generated a lot of discussion behind the scenes, too. And then we invited the guy who ran Search King.
oh yeah.
Mhm.
We had a conversation with him, and that was interesting.
He was quite a character, is quite a character.
Yeah.
I had been talking to him for years, email wise. He's very interesting. Search King was kind of interesting.
Yeah.
It may have gotten more legs if he hadn't tried to do what he did. It's all about how he monetized it that eventually was its undoing.
I'm not sure he could run that any differently. And monetize it.
Well, trying to sell PR by the pound is probably not going to go over very good with Google,
No.
which was essentially what he was doing.
And so they took
Well, it's the same thing.
the PR away from his website, and he sued them.
Killed him.
Yeah.
And the court said, "I'm sorry, that's their freedom of expression." Yeah.
Dumbass.
Couldn't
Yeah.
solve that, but it was close.
There were a lot of really out of the box ideas years ago. What was it? The $1 million pixel sites, and then we had the we were, oh my God, for about 2 years we made a killing on some direct auction directory sites where you got to bid for the placement of where you were on the page, and we just got swarmed by all the casino guys who were paying $200-300 a month to have their link be the first link on the page. And I mean, it was ridiculous. And then, you know, we'd send out anytime you got outbid, we sent you an email, said, "Hey, somebody bid more than you. You want to increase your bid and get put back on top?" And it was damn near like printing money for about 2 years. It was fucking awesome. And then one day Google's like, "Oh, we don't like directories anymore." It was right about the same time they took away the little green bar. And all of a sudden it got hard to
Sell ads.
convince people they should keep paying.
And the Google directory was different from the Open Directory in that pages were sorted by page rank.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they killed that.
But that wasn't public for very long. That directory, I bet you it wasn't public more than a couple of years.
The Google directory, right?
Probably for that reason.
It took
And you know, getting into like DMOS DMOS itself wasn't that big a deal, but so many people used DMOS as their seed for their directory.
Yeah.
You know, getting listed there got you put out on, you know, a few thousand websites over the course of the next few weeks. That's where the real kick in the pants was for them.
right. DMOS was a terrific seed set for a search engine
Yeah.
for focus cross. They
Yeah.
want to make sure they hit topics covered.
There was a time when Google used ODP and Yahoo, right?
Yeah. Because they were broken into topics and they were broken into geographic regions. So you can make sure that if you had something that you wanted to make sure you had coverage across the country, across the world, you'd use one of those.
I think also because it was reviewed, that was the reason that they chose those two, is it was starting with a reviewed resource.
Right. So there are things that can be used at seed sites now as replacements for those, but they don't necessarily have the same level of trust. Like you could use a Twitter, or you could use Wikipedia. Wikipedia is sort of self-monitoring.
Right.
People edit
Yeah.
it all the time to remove stuff, but stuff gets posted there and remains for a while sometimes.
I think they moved away from ODP because they started to realize there's, two ways to get into ODP: have a good site or know someone and pay them.
Well, the same can be said of Wikipedia to a lesser degree.
Yeah. It's gotten a lot harder for people to pay their way into Wikipedia. There's enough people now in the mid ranks who aren't getting paid.
Yeah.
But that's not the way it was with DMOS, man. All you had to do is know one editor there, and you were gold.
Yeah, because they could do them several times.
Yeah, I remember it took about 3 hours for me to get my site listed in DMOS.
Nice.
Some sites took 3 years.
They did the resource zone.
Or until they could find someone to pay.
So DMOS used to be able to let you supply your RSS feed address, and that wasn't working for me. So I went and complained in the resource zone, which was run by DMOS editors, that the RSS feed wasn't working, submission wasn't working correctly. So they fixed that and they edited my site. So it's worth reporting the error.
There you go.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, the good old days. Trying to remember what website was it, or search engine was it? Dogpile or Alta Vista or one of them in the early days. You could make changes to your web page, resubmit your page for recrawling, and then do the search again and see what those changes did for your site or for that page. In almost real time. That's what it was. InfoSeek. That was.
Yeah.
You could also, it would also tell you when you reach the point of spam. I kept doing it, adding more and more optimization till it told me, okay, this is spam. Rolled it back one thing and I had a maximum optimization.
Yeah.
I miss InfoSeek. That was.
And even back then, it was too many keywords in the alt tags, and putting keywords in images that didn't need them.
Mm-hmm.
I used to also make menus that was a sentence. If you went down the side, it would almost be like a sentence of the links, the way they were put in. Those were the barriers.
You conniving bastard.
Kind of stuff, man. Favorite trick to skip the menus, you put a blank TD and it skipped the menus and went right into the content by leaving TD empty. So you could basically manipulate the search engine and how they indexed your page.
Yeah, when they figured that out, I bet it didn't take them very long to put a throw a wrench in that.
I bet you that still hasn't been changed. Because now they segment the pages.
Yeah.
But basically, that's what I was doing, was segmenting the pages for them.
Yeah. And there's a table trick and then a CSS trick that you could do.
Well, that was before there was CSS.
Before CSS, yeah.
I remember the first CSS you had to use JavaScript to make it work. That's when I said, nah, I don't think I need this yet.
I saw something interesting this morning. Somebody asked me a question, and I had to go do some research, and I was surprised by what I found. The question had to do, I'm not going to mention who it was. The question had to do with disabled people that are browsing with JavaScript disabled. And I was surprised at the low percentage that numerous studies have shown, like 0.1% to a maximum of like 2% of users, depending upon the study and the region, that were actually browsing with JavaScript disabled. I would have thought it would have been somewhere up in the 15 or 20%.
No, you know why?
No, it's a
About IE 10 or 11, the browser had built-in detection of cross-site scripting, and that's why you had a lot of people had JavaScript turned on.
Well, a lot of savvy people, yeah, but I think that my impression at least, was that the vast impression of people that the vast majority had it disabled simply because they heard somebody say in a blog someplace or in a forum someplace that was a danger, a great vulnerability. You should disable JavaScript. They had no idea why or what the risk was. They just did it because somebody said it was bad.
Yeah, well, now try and find where you turn JavaScript and cookies off. That you got an hour to spare. Yeah, most people can't even find it now, I bet.
Well, there's so many sites now without JavaScript. You have almost no functionality. Well, it's a very, very basic.
True for a long time, though.
Huh?
JavaScript has been very prominent on the net from. Wow.
Oh yeah.
I remember when it was basically the main programming language.
Yep.
Because anything else was using CGI, and a lot of ISPs wouldn't even allow the use of CGI. So that's why a lot of people use JavaScript. One of my first clients was a shopping cart that was using JavaScript, and he was wondering why he wasn't in the search engine. Or not very much. His first page was in the engine. That was it.
Ooh. No, I was surprised by that, though. I knew that it was mostly under 1%.
Mm-hmm.
I just expected it would have been more than that still.
I bet you the number of people who have cookies turned off is much lower than it was 10 years ago. I bet the same thing on that.
It's changed. I mean, when's the last time you used a Flash site?
Oh God.
Yeah. But the thing is, there was a lot of misleading information about cookies.
Yeah.
So a lot of people were scared of them, so they removed them. But now, if you don't save cookies nowadays, you spend half your time looking up passwords.
Mm-hmm.
No, I use the same password everywhere. It's just easier.
1, 2, 3, 4.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's the same as on my luggage.
Yeah, that way you don't even have to worry about whether you're at the bank, at the ATM or your back door. You just got one number to remember,
Holy crap.
So what else happened in search this week?
So I came across a patent this week that talked about the search engine Google using Mechanical Turk to run crowdsourcing experiments.
Yay.
So it's the first time I've seen a search engine suggest using that they would use Mechanical Turk as opposed to SEOs.
The data's probably better. At least Mechanical Turk, they know what they're doing.
Yeah. So they said they were comfortable with using Mechanical Turk because they weren't really looking for expertise. They were looking for crowdsourced solutions.
Numbers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it sort of makes sense. So I'm not sure how many SEOs were using things like Mechanical Turk to try to see if click-through rates influence search engine rankings. But it's good seeing search engines use those tools too.
That's one I have never touched.
Never even looked at.
Never touched what?
Mechanical Turk.
Ah.
I did many, many years ago buy a spinning program. And just because I'd heard so much about them, and I thought, somebody said, oh, this one here, this is not this crap like all the others. This one here really worked great. And it was like $18 for a lifetime. Oh, God, who could go wrong, right?
So we're not talking stationary bikes here, are we?
Nope. This thing was, it was unbelievable. I couldn't believe anybody would pay 18 cents for something like that, much less. But I just, it was just kind of an experiment. I just was curious, can these things really do anything?
Yeah.
I have heard people say in forums and whatnot that they've gotten better. But I looked at that one, and what it would do is you put in a paragraph of text, and it would kick back 4.5 pages of that paragraph, offering 16 different options for every friggin' word in it, every adjective, every verb, every noun. And you had to go through and click and select. I could write this son of a bitch from scratch 3 times in the time it's going to take me to spin it once,
Yeah.
But that means you just weren't writing from the beginning with spinning in mind.
And
Well, it was unreal.
you have knowledge that probably most spinners didn't, i.e., what the other words were.
Yeah, like how to speak English. Yeah.
Yeah, that would be a help.
I still run across a spun article every once in a while. It still exists.
Well, there's always somebody out there that's still stuffing keywords in their meta too. You know,
Yeah.
some things never die. They should, but they don't.
Your alt text descriptions of images shouldn't mention the person's name twice in that alt text. It's a recipe for a penalty? Absolutely.
Well, I know when I go and on my audits, when I find that they had hired an SEO and somebody had gone through and supposedly dotted all the I's and crossed all the T's, and a couple times they've been SEOs that I've heard of before that are supposedly proficient, and it's just disgraceful to see how many of them don't know the difference. They don't know what the purpose of a title is and an alt tag is. Well, in fact, we were that chat the other day, Steve. So many people don't understand the function of an alt tag.
Yeah.
What it is its reason for existing.
Mm-hmm.
And there's an awful lot of people out there selling services that have no clue.
So your title shouldn't describe what the image is. It should include additional information about the image, like click to enlarge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or be instructions on how to do something. Also called tool tips.
Right.
Well, there was somebody in that chat the other day that actually, what's a reader? We mentioned that the alt tag is for readers.
Oh,
What's a reader?
yeah.
Yeah, how many clients you got there, buddy?
My mom. And then there was it just a couple of last week?
I would not be surprised to hear someone new to the business, like under 3 years, doesn't know what a screen reader is. That wouldn't surprise me. Hey, when we've all started, screen readers were still part of the how you build a page. Accessibility, because we had the accessibility laws that came in the States, right? So we kind of understood that.
Yeah.
These guys, if you're an SEO, you probably don't know that, because that would be more of a developer thing. Unless, you thought an SEO should know a little bit of HTML. See, that's why I think that argument that you don't need it. How can you recommend changes to things that you have no expertise in? It's kind of like, I don't know. Just doesn't make a lot of sense to me.
Which supports an argument that a SEO should know some things like HTML.
I certainly think that if you know it, it makes you much more capable of being a good SEO.
Yeah.
It's very helpful. Because I started out, I could barely read HTML and know what it was supposed to be doing. And I waited a couple of years studying SEO before I ever started trying to do it for a client. And by that time, I had learned to write some basic HTML. I could read it pretty easily, but I could write some basic stuff. I couldn't go build a functional site, an interactive website with it. But I could already tell that it was allowing me to do a lot more than what I could before. Just like, I started out a few years ago, I could look at a PHP page and I could tell what it was trying to do. I couldn't sit down and write it for the life of me.
Yeah.
Now I can look at JavaScript and understand it well enough to know that I have no fucking interest in ever learning how to write that shit.
Yeah.
I think I'd rather go learn Python.
Well, why rewrite? There, almost anything you want to do with JavaScript and to a lesser extent PHP, someone's already written the script. You just haven't found
Yeah.
the guy who did it the first time
But
and has published it out there.
And I do a fair amount of that copy paste from GitHub and whatnot. But I need to be able to look at that because it's usually not going to do exactly what I want done. I need to understand where is it saying what so that I know how to modify it and not screw it up. And but I couldn't sit down and write hardly any of that stuff from scratch, and I have no desire to learn how. But I got to at least be able to know what I'm playing with to be able to copy paste the stuff reliably, or I'm going to just break stuff right and left. So, I see this tremendous value. But by the same token, Terry, your general practitioner, when you go into him and you're having, chest pains,
He sends you to a specialist.
yeah, but he has to know enough about the general medicine to know that you probably should see an endocrinologist.
Right.
He doesn't have to know endocrinology.
Right. The generalist knows which specialist. And to me, that's what a good SEO can do. They can identify a problem and know who to.
So my argument is then that I don't necessarily have to be able to write the script to make your site do what you want. I have to be able to explain it to your developer adequately so that he can write the script to meet the spec.
Right.
Whether that's JavaScript or HTML, I think, certainly HTML is basic enough that, if a 5-year-old kid can learn it, by God, if you're going to call yourself an SEO, you ought to be able to, right? But I don't know that it's fair to say that it's an essential skill to be able to call yourself an SEO. You're holding yourself back without it, but I don't think it's really truly essential.
Well, keep those thoughts, because when I was at it, I always thought that was my advantage.
Well, it is an advantage, no doubt. Absolutely.
See, to me, if you don't know HTML, you're not an SEO, you're a link builder. And
Now that's just going too far, Terry.
Especially since most SEO are link builders.
You know who agrees with me about that? Deborah Musteller.
Nobody.
With me that that's the difference.
Well, most link builders would never be able to get the anchor text they want from the blog owner if they weren't able to hand him ready-made code. So they're going to have to be able to write some HTML, at least to build a link.
Not really. I get lots of stuff. Link this word. Okay. No problem. For the clients who think they know how to do SEO.
Oh, there aren't any of those out there.
Yeah, you have to keep the money coming.
Oh, we're at the top of the hour, guys.
Showed up.
Thank you. Have a
See
good
y'all.
Bye all.
Thanks, everyone. Take care.
Later.